Alright, so this is video smallpox. First question is, though the reason can really be lumped into one category, the narrator gives specific examples. Match up the examples he gives for this question. Why did the smallpox germs affect the Incans so drastically, unlike the Europeans? So we just have the different ways this was acquired. So the way flu was acquired, measles, and smallpox. All right. Wait, I'm not presenting the audio, right? Double check real quick. I don't think so.
You're not recording either.
Yeah, I am.
The first smallpox epidemic of the New World swept through Central America and reached the Inca Empire. Wherever it went, the virus decimated native populations, making them easier prey for Spanish conquest.
So here you can see the little, like, pustule grossness going on.
But why were the germs so one-sided? Why did the Spaniards pass their diseases on to the Incas and not the other way around?
This is Pizarro's secret weapon. Pigs and cows, sheep and goats, domestic animals. Remember that Pizarro was a swineherd. He grew up in huts like this, in intimate contact with domestic animals, breathing in their germs, drinking the germs in their milk, and it was from the germs of domestic animals that the killer diseases of humans evolved. For example, our flu evolved from a disease of pigs.
Alright. Wait a second.
Transmitted by chickens and ducks.
Okay. So, the flu was acquired from a disease by pigs via eating chickens and ducks. So, I'm going to put, so this is question number 1. So, this one's going to be flu equals so I'm just going to put the first part of it.
We acquired measles from cattle.
Alright, so measles from cattle. Alright.
We acquired smallpox from domestic animals, so that these worst killers of...
So domestic animals is really all of these. So that's not as specific as it probably, I guess, needs to be. But if he's getting specific, I feel this should be more specific, but it's not. Alright, so there are your answers for number 1. So, a disease by pigs, for flu, measles, cattle, smallpox, domestic animals. About how many years of contact with animals did Europeans have to gain the immunity necessary to survive smallpox, according to the narrator?
Human people were a legacy of 10,000 years of contact with our beloved domestic animals.
Alright, so 10,000 years. Two is 10,000. Okay. Repeated epidemics made Europeans less resilient. Resilient is ability kind of to thrive, to if something pushes you down, you come back from it.
During the Middle Ages, infectious diseases swept through Europe and claimed millions of lives. But paradoxically, repeated epidemics made Europeans more resilient.
All right, so more resilient, and it's going to tell you why in a minute. So this is false. So number 3 is false. All right, and then we've got the reason Europeans survived over time was because they traveled and moved so much they never came in contact with the diseases for long periods of time. They would pass on their genetic resistance to their children. They developed a special medicine that guarded them against all diseases, or they developed an extensive process for hygiene and sanitation.
In each outbreak, there were always some people who were genetically better able to fight off the virus. These people were more likely to survive and have children. In the process, they'd pass on their genetic resistance.
So it's passing it on to their children. So essentially, this is survival of the fittest in a sense. If you have so this disease goes out, you end up getting it, you survive, you have kids, they're more likely to survive because you've kind of passed this, shall we say, strength gene in a sense onward. If you get it and you die, obviously your children aren't going to, less likely to survive. I mean, they might. I guess there's a 50-50 chance at the beginning, but the more people who are weaker in a like a disease sense, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, I got the biggest muscles, right? It can just be genetically like weaker to disease. They will die, and probably so will their children, and so you end up with more and more people who are resistant to the disease that survive, and that's how that happens. All right, next question is, in which locations were there farm animals in the world aside from the llama?
I'm going to go with Sub-Saharan Africa and Arab Sea.
Wow. Okay. So it's going to show you on a map what it is.
Over centuries, whole populations acquired some degree of protection against the spread of diseases like smallpox. A protection the Incas never had.
When smallpox was taken to the New World, nobody in the New World had ever seen a disease like this before, so the number of people susceptible was much greater. There was no natural immunity, and so therefore the number of people who could both contract the disease and then spread it, and the number of people to receive it once it had been spread was much higher. More people would die, and more people would be susceptible to catch it in the first place. It would spread rapidly throughout the population, and the death toll would be enormous.
Why hadn't Native Americans encountered smallpox before? And why didn't they have any deadly diseases of their own to pass on to Spaniards? It's simply because they didn't have the same history of contact with fallen animals. The Incas had llamas, but llamas aren't like European cows and sheep. They're not milked, they're not kept in large herds, and they don't live in barns and hustle alongside humans.
Let me go over real quick. One of the big things that they did use llamas for was their coat. So they would be able to take their, I'm not sure if it's called fur or hair. It really depends on the structure of it. But they would cut that off and they could make clothing out of it, blankets out of it, things like that. So that's kind of the reason they were, they existed for the Native Americans.
There was no significant exchange of germs between llamas and people.
The key to Diamond's argument is the distribution of farm animals around the world. Aside from the llama, all the large farm animals were native to Eurasia and North Africa.
All right, so here you should check Eurasia and North Africa. Wait, where'd it go? There it is. So let me go up here. So Eurasia is basically, let me see if I can. So North Africa is up here, like very top, right? Then you've got the Sahara in here. So sub-Saharan Africa would be the bottom bit. So kind of up here, you can kind of see how they have it too. The green, right, is not going to be as much of the desert as up here. So very, very top. If you look, so Europe is right here, and it is connected to Asia. And that's why they say Eurasia, because it's Europe and Asia put together. And since if you look at this, all this land is connected. The water in between is very short distances. So traveling here is not that difficult. To get to the Americas, you got to go all the way over there. So it's not going to move as easily. Animals aren't going to move as easily. Disease isn't going to move as easily. Of course, now we have planes. So, that helps with the movement. All right. So again, let me put this back. So you need to check your Asia and North Africa. Be careful that you don't pick North America. Because obviously, if you just look for North, there's 2 in there. All right. And I think sub-Saharan Africa, they'd have to cross the desert, and I think that's kind of why. I guess they wouldn't have to necessarily, because you could go along the outside, but you can kind of see how this kind of separates everything, so travel is a little bit more difficult coming up this way. All right. What was the next question is, scholars estimate that there were some 20 million Native Americans, and the vast majority, perhaps blank, were killed by old world diseases. If you think back to the chapter, you should know the answer to this.
From the llama, all the large farm animals were native to Eurasia and North Africa. None was ever domesticated in North America, Sub-Saharan Africa, or Australia. As a result, the worst epidemic diseases were also native to Eurasia and North Africa, and were then spread around the world with deadly effect. There's been a long debate about the number of indigenous people who died in the Spanish conquest of the New World. Some scholars think there may have been a population of 20 million Native Americans, and the vast majority, perhaps 95%, were killed by Old World diseases.
All right, so this was before in the chapter as well. It's 95%. All right. Number 7. Pizarro promised Atahualpa, the Incan leader, his freedom if he had his people melt down treasure for the Spanish. This turned out to be an empty promise. After giving them gold, he was killed. True or false?
A continent virtually emptied of its people. After the initial shock of his capture, Atahualpa became a cooperative prisoner.
Let me say this. The way he got captured in the first place, there was a battle between the Pizarro's army and the Incans, and that's how he gets captured. The Pizarro's men, they have horses, better swords, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
he learned to speak Spanish and played chess with his captors. The Spaniards realized he was more useful to them alive than dead. He was allowed to re-establish his court and prison, as long as he ordered his people to accept Spanish rule. He also ordered them to melt down a vast amount of treasure. Pizarro had promised Atahualpa his freedom in return for the gold. It proved to be an empty promise. Having handed over 20 tons of gold and silver, Atahualpa was no longer useful to his captors. He was garroted to death in the same square where so many of his followers had been slaughtered 8 months earlier.
All right. So this is true. So number 7 is true. The steady flow of ships carrying treasure coming from the blank helped blank become one of the richest nations on Earth.
With Atahualpa dead, the conquistadors went on to colonize the rest of Peru. Relying on the power of their guns, germs, and steel. Gold from the Spanish colonies was brought back to Seville in southern Spain. There's little activity on the Guadalquivir River today, but in the 16th century, this was among the most important, busiest ports in the world. The steady flow of ships carrying treasure from the Americas helped Spain become one of the richest nations on Earth.
All right, so this is the Americas, and I would definitely copy and paste from the chat if you suck at spelling. According to the narrator, the Europeans were blank conquerors.
I knew the last answer.
Just don't say it. This is going to be a very interesting video on YouTube.
The conquistadors had changed forever the relationship between old world and new.
I came to Spain to answer a question. Why did Pizarro and his men conquer the Incas instead of the other way around? There's a whole mythology that conquest and European expansion in general resulted from Europeans themselves being especially brave or bold or inventive or smart, but the answers turn out to have nothing to do with any personal qualities of Europeans. Yeah, Pizarro and his men were brave, but they were plenty of brave Incas. Instead, Europeans were accidental conquerors. By virtue of their geographic location and history, they were the first people to acquire guns, germs, and steel.
Alright, so the answer is accidental conquerors. So let me type that in here. And this is number 9. And that's basically it for that video.